Thank you so much, Nataki, for joining me for the DG Coffee Chat. How are you feeling today? Body, heart,
Yeah,
mind?
I'm feeling just fine. My daughter started school, and of course, that's the sort of beginning when they all come together and they share their laugh, and they share their toys, and they share their germs. And so I'm just getting over a little bit of something.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear you're on the getting over part of that. But yeah, what an exciting period. I remember when I was going to school, uh, having those dreams ahead of school starting and thinking about homework is probably some anxiety, but just being excited about getting back in there and seeing old friends again or new friends, depending on where I was. So, well,
Yeah,
congratulations on that.
thank you. She's starting preschool, so she hasn't quite gotten there yet, but she's really excited, and she's in a transitional space right now. She's going to be moving to her actual school in a couple of weeks, so we're also excited about the school she's heading towards.
So, thank you for sharing that. I'm so glad to hear that. So I'm so glad that you're here having this conversation with me. I would love to start with how, at least I've seen you define your mission and purpose as an artist. You wrote an article that was published by theroot.com last fall in 2022. And in it, you described your mandate as an artistic leader. So you stated in part there that your mandate is to place the artist at the center, create the conduit for how we engage, develop, and access new work, and how we interrogate the classics in both live and digital spaces. And that was at a time when you were the artistic director of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. So I am curious as to how you finally arrived at that purpose for yourself, and how has your current perspective influenced this mandate?
So I feel like it's always been my mandate, although I don't think I articulated it prior to the pandemic quite so clearly. And so moving into the pandemic and the years prior, as a freelance artist and as a artistic leader at large, I was the acting artistic director of the Denver Center before I came to OSF. And you come into these systems that are so concretized in these traditional processes that feel antithetical to supporting the artist. And I don't think they were created to be. Um, I think they were created to support the artist. But I also don't know how often the people who make art are engaged in the conversations around how you support that making. And so, as an artist leader, my goal, by using my platform as the leader, has always been to create this space that allowed for the most vulnerable in my connected art making community to be the most supported in that process. And when you start to move in that direction, what you learn is that the system is based on capitalism, and capitalism actually needs there to be a bottom for there to be a top. And so to shift that is to kind of shift the tools by which you make the work. I'm still very focused on this because we extract a lot from our art makers, and the more vulnerable you are, the more extraction there is, but not a lot of engagement, and not a lot of nurturing and support. And so I believe that my work at OSF is proof that you actually can create systems that really look at supporting the artist. And when you do that, you don't have to you don't have to apply so many corrective measures through your DEI work or your equity work. You actually can use the art as the sort of emblem of cultural justice. And if you work in co-liberative ways, you don't you don't have to create co-liberation on the side. It's not additive, it actually becomes a part of the process. So, you know, it's actually a series, like it's unbraiding something and reweaving something that I actually think is integral to our humanity. Um, you know, and if artists are if our role is to reflect back humanity, then we actually need more support and more collaborative tools and a greater support on our ability to be impactful, greater support around how people might ensure that we can be at our best when we're making art, you know.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think I don't think I've heard someone use the term collaborative, but I love that concept. Uh, and that idea.
Collaboration, I learned, we engaged at OSF the work of the Bodhi process. Um, the center of that process is this idea that instead of waiting for white supremacy to do what it needs to do to offer my liberation, it gives you a series of strategies to be liberated in whatever moment that you're in. So in the act of liberating myself, I also can liberate whoever is in the process of oppressing, or I can also share my tools with the people around me who also may be being oppressed, with the understanding that the oppressors are also oppressed. And so that those kinds of strategies, which are, you know, very specific and taught by, you know, facilitators who really know what they're doing, probably could articulate it better than me. But some of those strategies, you know, that's another thing that expanded my thinking about supporting the artists to manifest innovation, inspire creativity, is this idea that if we embed ourselves in a collaborative practice where we're all activated in our own freedom, boy, it's, you know, the impact is out of this world, or in this world.
Yes, it is. It is within this world. It's possible. Thank you for that. And thank you for further expanding on that.
Hi, DG community. My name is Brianne Barrett. I'm the Director of Programming for Directors Gathering, and I'm very excited about this year's convening. I'm looking forward to our programs, the seminar, pickup class, and roundtable where we're going to have an opportunity to discuss the universality of art making with guest artists from many different mediums. I particularly am inspired by game design and how game designers are looking for opportunities for interactivity in which the audience is participating in first-person response to the narrative.
Hi there, my name is Jill Harrison and I'm the founder and executive director of Directors Gathering. What I am most excited about this year's DG convening is the opportunity for a multifaceted and a multi-generational community, which is being brought to a reality with our event partnership with Swarthmore College's Department of Theater. Some of you may know and some of you may not, or are about to know, but that DG was found based on a yearning for connectivity, a sense of combining the universality and the dynamic artistic practices of theater directors. The vision of a diverse, ongoing community for makers and thinkers and doers, and directors by their own definition, and a mission to gather that community of makers and their varied and universal ways of art making. When I was creating DG, which was in 2014, I had the opportunity to start working with the Department of Theater at Swarthmore. I was a guest artist and a guest director. And we were working in varied ways, and I was observing that the mission of the department and their commitment to a sense of ongoing community, and again, that rooted in investigation and reflection and pushing the medium forward, and that sense of exploration of the universality of art making was very much present in the department. While we were super grateful to be in residence on campus, we were finding that there was, if anything, a missing opportunity to be able to interface directly with the students and faculty and staff of the department. Enter this convening. Enter this theme, the universality of art making. It is equal parts serendipitous, an epic long-term table setting between these two communities, DG and Swarthmore College's Department of Theater, to meaningfully connect with the theme of this year's convening and have the heart center of what seems to me anyway, the heart center of the department, which that sense of faculty and staff and students designing and encouraging and engaging with each other in the outside world of how to take the universality of art making and put it into practice. I look forward to seeing you all virtually, or those of you from the Swarthmore community in person, September 30th through October 1st. Thanks so much.
I like to shift a little bit to thinking about this year's convening. Last year, another reference to something that I found interesting and related, that last year, PEN America, which is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to defend free expression of artists, specifically writers and the literary culture, issued a statement in their support of you and in response to the reports of death threats and intimidation that you and your staff experienced when you were the artistic director of Oregon Shakespeare Festival. Their statement said in part, "It is essential that we maintain space for open discourse about the arts, including trenchant criticism and ardent disagreement." And I share that because this year's DG Convening is on the theme of the universality of art making and exploring how theater directors have this power to enrich their humanity and artistry through exposure to various expressions of artistic practice. And so the DG team responsible for planning the convening thought that you would have not only an inspiring response to the theme, but one that could motivate our community of theater directors and makers into action. But what I would love to hear from you is why you said yes to our invitation to join us as the keynote speaker this year, and what about this theme and our offer is resonating with you?
Yeah, so the reason why I said yes is because I have this sort of essential spirit-based mandate that if I'm called to speak, it's because there is something that's going to be activated in me to share. Otherwise, I don't seek speech. So speech usually seeks me because things move through me, and so there's that part where I, even in the middle of saying yes, I have to say that there was a part of me, especially at the point at which you all engaged me, which was so soon after I left my previous organization. I was like, I think I'm probably should be the last one to try to give an inspiring speech, but even in the truth of that, of being able to say that truth to myself, that I am disillusioned by my industry, and I'm disillusioned to the part of wanting to be disengaged. That at every moment that I've said that in the last 3 months, I have had a countering engagement that basically called me, to stand up and speak and to be active, as if there's an energy within the current of our ecology, our theater making ecology, that is like, we're not done with you. And I think there's something about that that's connected to your theme. I remember in our first conversation, and I'll be transparent, I wrote these notes down, and when I went back to read them, I was like, what world are they in? There's this like, can we, have a kind of positive outlook and conversation about, how we impact? And, I think, and then I had to kind of give myself a little bit of space to think about, like, what is positive? you know, and to sort of unpack that for myself, because our industry is reflectively in crisis. You know, there are so many theaters closing down. We make our living in those spaces. Those are the spaces, the smaller the theater, the more likely they were to have cultivated people like me. You know, I came up through the ranks of the smaller, culturally specific theaters in the Bay Area. And so the loss of these spaces is endemic, and it won't matter at some point how impactful we are in our artistry and our ability to really shift the way people think, and you know, how our art making and expression can actually evolve a project into something that it didn't know it could be. All of those things matter when you have space to do it in, and when you have the kind of support and resources to be able to uphold that. And so the call for me is actually about recognizing that, you know, the field is going through a great transition, and we as directors actually have to avail ourselves to that transition. Right? We have to be prepared for the thing to shift. We have to be conscious of how we are going to roll with the waves as they come through, and we have to be prepared for the aftermath to be able to pick up those pieces. In most of the theaters that were started in the 50s, you know, during the onset of the regional theater movement, most of those are artist-led theaters. You know, so it is the artist that's going to come back and pick up the pieces. And whether your artistry is through administration solely, or whether your artistry is you're an actor who also started a theater company, or you're a director, we are going to be the ones to do the rebuilding. And we have to be very clear about what we are building. And maybe what we need to be thinking about is how we remove the re and actually build something that can exist beyond the sort of treachery and reliance on the resources that we've relied on as an industry, and those people who are connected to those resources who are not essentially generous in their giving. You know, and how do we continue to evolve in an industry that is not attracting our friends outside of the theater who don't come, and who aren't theater makers, and we really have to think about that, you know, and so that's where I'm focused. Is, you know, it's not going to be okay, and it's okay that it's not going to be okay. We just have to be prepared. We have to know it's not going to be okay. You can't look at a hurricane come in your direction and say, "Oh, it's going to be fine." It's not going to be fine. Right? What you have to be prepared for is the aftermath of that, and how can you build the scaffolding around your own spirit so that you can be sustained in those high winds, so that when those high winds stop, you are prepared, you're fortified to go back out, pick up those pieces, and build something that actually is more reflective of our time. You know, that's where I am right now.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that the last thing that you said really resonates with me, this building this scaffolding around your spirit. I feel that deeply.
Jarrell L. Henderson here, director, puppeteer, archivist, board member on DG, talking about another artistic medium that inspires me. And I wanted to talk about being a DJ. I find DJs so inspirational. They are historians, they are archivists, they are storytellers. They know how to move an audience with art and like the programming and arrangement of like art and storytelling. It's so cool.
Hi everyone, my name is Macy Mott. I'm a new DG board member, and I'm also the executive artistic director of a small nonprofit theater company in Wyoming called Riot Act Inc. I'm a theater director, and another medium that inspires me as a theater director is costuming. I'm also a costume designer. I feel that textiles, colors, textures all make a difference in how our plays get presented. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great time at Convening.
So the final question I have for you is on this year's theme, and a little, I feel like this is a more fun question to ask all of our guest artists as we think on the theme, and inspiration. And the question is, what is another artistic medium outside of your primary form of practice that inspires your craft? And feel free to share any artists that you'd like to acknowledge or that you're thinking of.
Oh, that's an interesting question. Because I feel like my answer is everything does that. I feel like I've spent the last, honestly, I've spent the last few years in a kind of isolated space where I didn't have access to be inspired by other people's art making. You know, what was happening at OSF was what was happening, and that was inspiring. You know, the work. Don't get me wrong, the work was really inspiring. You know, even in the midst of the hard times in the pandemic. But I'm somebody who's kind of like, I need the art museum, and I need the ballet company and the jazz, modern dance thing, and I need to know that the things exist in the world. I get some of my inspiration from television and the news, and hearing the pundits yell at each other, and podcasts, and I get some from movies, and from really good writing on television. So I have to say that I get it from all over, because I really do. I also sometimes can get it in process, where I walk into a process that I'm not necessarily inspired going into, and then something happens in the engagement with the people around me. So if I could separate, even within the world of theater making, what the actors do is inspiring to me, and my conversations with the designers are ultimately inspiring. The casting process is an inspiration to me. So I can't say that it's one thing. It's like, sometimes it's a conversation I have with my neighbor, it's so many things. I feel like some artists, can be like, oh, I saw this art exhibit with with Edgar Arsenault, and it changed my life. And I'm a little bit more like, yeah, I saw that, and then I walked over to the mini mall and got myself an ice cream, and watched this woman and her grandchild, as they chose what kind of flavor they wanted, and that was inspiring as well. I feel like life is inspiring if you have the ability to open your eyes and your heart and let it be. I feel like I might have been a little bit more single-minded during the pandemic, because there was such a limit. You could only get your art in one way, right? After I reached the end of Netflix, I was like, I'm starving for something, for any kind of input, and I found myself on one of these sites that delivers you old opera, recordings, and ballet from the Ballet Russe in 1983, and it was like I was starved for input.
Mm-hmm.
So I could say that online was the carrier, but I really can get it from anywhere.
I just want to say thank you again for joining me in this space. I really appreciate this conversation and your openness to my inquiries about your artistic practice. And I hope that everybody who's getting to watch this really gets to, think of those things for themselves and really, can get something from this conversation, and hopefully inspired to join us at the convening, where they can hear more from you and actually get an opportunity to engage with you directly. Thank you for watching DG Coffee Chat. To support this and other programs at Directors Gathering, visit directorsgathering.org and click Donate.